This past weekend in Walt Disney World, Destination D23 once again reminded us why it is such a special event. For over 3 days, fans came together at Disney's Coronado Springs Resort to celebrate the past, the present, and a little bit of the future of Disney. We got surprising and exciting announcements, emotional tributes, incredible performances, some sneak peeks at what's coming next, and maybe, most importantly, the chance to connect as community. And this Destination D23, and I've been very grateful to have been to all of them since the very beginning, was the largest to date, with more than 4,000 people coming together. And it really took us as fans on a journey across the worlds of Disney with an amazing lineup of experiences, including announcements and sneak peeks, and there was shopping and an after-hours event, behind the scenes, live performances, and some surprises and special moments. And I think it gave us a glimpse not just into what is happening now, a little bit of the past, but a little bit of the, I think, bold and creative future that is ahead. And with so much to experience and to try and cover, here we're gonna talk about 23 of the biggest takeaways from Destination D23 2025, including, teaser, what I think is a huge announcement hiding in plain sight. And joining me today, I pause for dramatic effect. Joining me today and in the room this past weekend, so I can vouch for her emotional reactions, is Serena Lyn from Living by Disney. Serena, welcome back.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to dive into all this and process it in real time with all of you.
Yeah, because it ended, last night, and we are recording, early the next morning, because I think we did need a little bit of time to take it all in and let it sort of just come together in our heads. But I also wanted to talk about it as quickly as possible while it is fresh. And, I talk about how we were, literally in the room together. We sat together for a lot of this. And I want to start right there. I want to talk about the importance of being in the room, right? I always talk about it's so important to put yourself in the right room with the right people in a business or personal sense. And I think this is a perfect example of that. In my, couple of Instagram stories where I, talk to camera, I kept talking about the room and the energy. So talk a little bit about that versus some other D23, Destination Ds, and Expos, because I think this felt very, very different. And talk a little about your feelings, and if so, why?
I agree. It did. The energy was amazing, and we use that word a lot, but I feel like the more and more we spend time in digital and online spaces, the more valuable IRL in real life interactions become, the more we can be moved by the energy of the people around us. And, I really encourage people that are listening to consider attending one of these. It might feel like a lot. It's obviously cost and time, but boy, is it just, there's something about being surrounded by people who love what you love that's just it's so validating, but it's so rewarding. It just fills your cup up so much.
Yeah, and it's funny because this was, when we say it was bigger, it's double the size of what it has been before. But and what I love about this event, it's a one room, much, much smaller, exponentially smaller than D23 Expo, but it's that same sense of community. And I think maybe even more so. And I think time and history will sort of look back and we'll sort of be able to chart the pre and post pandemic. And as time has gone on, this increased need and I think desire for in real life, and more importantly, not just being in the same room, but creating that sense of community. I think that's what D23 has done very, very well. I think we'll talk more about that as our conversation goes on. But I think, we talk about this event and how it was different. And as we approached the event, I held myself back. I don't know if you did, with here are my predictions for all the big announcements that are coming from Destination D23, because I don't need to go out of my way to be wrong. That happens naturally. And I've just come to set my expectations for this event, and I don't want to use the word lower because I think that diminishes what the event is, but they were different in terms of announcements because that's not what this event is meant to be. And I think sometimes we as fans set false expectations based on what we want, not what the event is. So for example, you may have seen the internet. There is no, people are like, there's no parks panel. Well, there hasn't always been a parks panel. Josh Damaro was not here, but for me, I was like, listen, I am not going in with the expectation of huge Disney parks news. This is not where you're going to get the fifth gate. But yet the weekend was still full of a lot of surprises.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes too we can forget that the Disney company is more than theme parks. Like that's just one piece of this massive company that has so many parts, but also so many different types of fans. For everybody that's in that room, there are people there that don't even go to the theme parks. Like that's not even a part of their Disney fandom. So to be like, well, there's no park stuff, so what's the point? Like, it's a very narrow-minded view. And it is, I think, I don't know, I feel like it is kind of nicer because it's not about breaking news and, all of that hubbub. It's more about fans. It's a fan convention. So it's about the fans and sort of honoring the fans and not like big celebrities and all the flash and dazzle. It's just more about like a bunch of people who love this thing coming together and celebrating it.
Yeah, and you are very, very right about, and when I first started this like journey back in 2003, I never realized, I was like, we're all Disney fans. Forget about not going to the parks. Some people didn't even go to the panels because they're there for like D23, the flamethrower. Like it's about the merchandise for a lot of people. And I think I've said it many times and we'll probably say it many more. There was definitely something and someone for everyone in that room. And, before we even get into some of the takeaways, I think the merchandise and the shopping experiences is part of that. And again, I think it was I'll talk about the execution of the event as a whole, but, the Walt Disney Company store, Mickey's of Glendale, the Ink and Paint Marketplace, not just having official Disney stores and access to places that you would not be able to reach otherwise unless you go to the studios, unless you go to Imagineering. But Disney Publishing is there. Disney Consumer Products is there. And what I love is that all the expos and Destination Ds also invite friends of Disney, right? The friends of Disney brands. Rock'em Socks and Rob, I love those guys. East Continental Gems I have a video coming soon, a very, very unique set of cool collectibles. But there's also like Ravensburger and Joffrey's and Art Brand Studios, Pandora, Stife, McFarlane Toys, and
lug bags.
Lug bags, right? So before the event even started, there was the opportunity to, satisfy your need for some retail therapy and go in and do some shopping.
Yeah. And that's a big part of these. And you're right. Like how these are places that the merchandise, you don't get any more exclusive than this. Like this is the only place you can get them. Even something like Bath and Body Works, they have a villains collection coming out that hasn't even hit the internet yet, and you could shop it. So they know what the fans want. They know it's going to get people excited. And there's a huge fan base of people that's the main reason they attend.
Mm-hmm. And much like not being a sweets guy, I'm also not a merch guy. That seems to be up for debate based on my recent eating habits. However, I do think, I spent a lot of time in those rooms just walking through to get a sense of what was being offered, the people that were there, listening in on conversations. And I love the fact that Lug and Loungefly and Bath and Body Works are these lifestyle, they're not random sponsors, right? I think they are designed to sort of fit seamlessly into how Disney fans live their fandom every single day, because maybe you can't get to the parks. We want to bring some of that at home. I may or may not have creeped up on you making some of those purchases on your own. You wanted that, Snow White poison apple candle holder. But I also think things that, shops like Mickey's of Glendale makes the shopping experience itself feel like a privilege of belonging to the community.
Yeah. And a big reason why you want to say, I was here at this event. I have the merch that shows it. I got the t-shirt that shows it, but I also got this really cool stuff that you can't get anywhere else. Yeah. And, my favorite Imagineer has this shirt, or my favorite, whatever. Like it feels very exclusive and very fun to shop around and look at all that. And I love to see the brands that are like Lug Bags, which is a family owned business, husband and wife business that got that Disney partnership, and now they're sponsoring this whole event and offering all of these things for fans. So it's fun to see the smaller businesses as well as the big corporations all kind of come together for something that the fans are going to love.
Well, we keep talking about the energy, right? And the energy is not just the energy in the room, it's in the hallways and it's in these rooms, because the vendor halls and the sponsor activations, because it's not just, lining up for merchandise, they really are sort of interactive exhibits and there's people to meet. They really are a major part of the buzz, right? Watching fans line up and share their hauls and trade finds and trade pins and then post their experiences online, I think helps to fuel that community aspect of D23. And I think because they're creating tangible takeaways from the event, whether it's the lug bag that you carry, and kudos to Lug, I think it is brilliant from a marketing perspective to give every single person one of their bags, or the pin you scored, or the exclusive candle that you bought. They become physical memories that are very much tied to the emotional highs of the weekend that we took away. And I think it's really smart of Disney the way they do it, because it's not just about we need to sell vendor space in this room. They really curate vendors that align with Disney's values of storytelling and creativity and fandom.
Yeah, and they know what we like. I mean, they know what the fans like, so they know how to get the things in there that are going to excite people.
Yeah, and it's right. And again, I think it's an extension. I'm going to keep coming back to community, because I think it's really one of the things that impacted me so much this weekend. But it's not just about the panels and announcements, but about the things that we're able to take home, share with one another, and then look back on, reflect in our homes or offices. But all right, let's get into it. Let's get into 23 of what could have been 230 for me takeaways from Destination D23 2025. And these are, I don't know what order my brain ended up putting these in. I tried to sort of curate them into a couple of different things, but number one for me, and I think this for a lot of us who not only attend but exhibit there, this was the announcement I really was waiting for, is that D23, the ultimate, it used to be D23 Expo, I have to catch myself, the ultimate Disney fan event is returning with major expansion to Anaheim, California, August 14th through the 16th. It's once again going to be held both at the Anaheim Convention Center and the Honda Center. And Jody Benson was named the official D23 fan ambassador, who's going to engage with fans throughout the year leading up to event. Tickets are going to go up on sale in spring 2026. I know, Serena, you have attended before. I have attended and exhibited every time before. D23, this biannual event, is the thing I sort of mark on. I look to start marking on my calendar the minute the last D23, I'm going to call it Expo for brevity's sake, the last D23 Expo ends.
I agree. I think they're my favorite event. And now with Destination really becoming its own event in its own right, now we get one kind of every year, which is great. And coast to coast, which means people have the opportunity to attend the one that's closest to them and most convenient. Also, both of them being close to parks means you can incorporate it into a park visit, which is nice. But last year, I don't know how you felt, but the addition of the Honda Center for the larger panels to me was wonderful. I loved it. I loved having a seat. Everybody had an assigned seat that you didn't have to stress, or, lines used to wrap around the building. People would wait all night. It was a lot. And now it's just much easier, much more convenient. And now they really have made it into a huge production. I mean, it is like, Taylor Swift Eras tour, but for Disney fans.
Well, I remember when they first announced the Honda Center, like the logistics part of my brain is like, I don't understand it. Like, how are they going to get all these people from the convention center to the Honda Center? It's going to be a mess. It wasn't. It was seamless, and it was executed flawlessly. And the experience in the Honda Center did not make you feel like you were lost in a big space. It just felt like a grand, that tight sense of community, because you were surrounded by like-minded people, but bigger and better. And I've never been to the Eras tour, but I'm assuming it was like D23 Expo. But again, that crazy energy that was in the room, and I love the fact that they do that so more people can experience it, and they can increase their production value as well.
Yeah, they gave you a show. I
Yeah.
mean, that is about the spectacle and the dazzle and the celebrities and all of that. But there's also this incredible energy in the room, when they make these big announcements and everybody's just, you lock eyes with the strangers around you in this just very like, we're all having this like shared experience. It's amazing. So I love that you have one of these each year, but they're also different.
Mm.
The expo or the one in Anaheim is the big, the big spectacle, the celebrities, the red carpet sort of vibe. And then the Destination D is more cozy. It's more, it feels more about the fandom. It's less about the big breaking news and more about celebrating the fans as a whole. So I love both.
Yeah, I didn't realize locking eyes was where you were supposed to stop. I would just get up and start hugging the person. I'm like, oh my god, it's Charlie Cox and Daredevil. But it's okay. Like we all we all get it. And actually leads me to the number 2 takeaway on my list is that the D20. It's not just D23, the Disney D23, the Ultimate Disney Fan Event, and Destination D23, but the D23 events calendar is packed for 2025 and 2026. They announced or sort of, reminded us of other events, including the D23 Spooktacular Spotlight with Walt Disney Imagineering in Orlando, the Halloween Bonanza in California, Percy Jackson Season 2 celebration in December, D23 on the road celebrating Home Alone's 35th anniversary, Sign Me Right Up, over 18 cities starting November 1st. A Jolly Holiday on the Lot is coming back December 14th for the D23 Gold Theater virtual Haunted Mansion holiday event. And something new, which I am very, very intrigued about, is the Walt Disney Los Angeles tour, including the studios, Imagineering, the Tam O'Shanter. Normally something that was reserved, some of those things reserved for an Adventures by Disney. You are now going to have access to a much smaller, again, much more intimate VIP behind the scenes tour led by Becky Klein from the Walt Disney Archives. I have 3 words for you, and they are sign me up.
Yeah, every single one of those experiences sounds amazing. And we as being part of working with Disney as media, we get some really cool opportunities. And these are every bit as cool as that. Like they're giving really unprecedented access. And I love that it's for everybody, absolutely everybody, any fan, anyone who's listening, you can go sign up for these opportunities and these events and get that really exclusive, really interesting access to all of the people and the places that create the things you love. I mean, that's amazing. Every one of those sounds fantastic. And they are in this incredible period of growth. And I just love that for them.
And I love the fact that they are doing these on the road events. So it's not just you have to come to Florida, you have to come to Anaheim. And they've been doing this for a long time. And it's actually funny. Last week I was speaking at a conference in Cleveland, and a friend of mine is like, hey, I'm in Cleveland too. Let's get together and let's grab a coffee at your hotel. And I'm like, yeah, but you live in Detroit. Why are you here? Like, I hope you didn't drive 5 hours for coffee. And she says, no, we're here for the D23, a Goofy movie event, which I didn't even realize was going on. And I was like, one, I love the fact that they are bringing this to people where they are with a 5-hour drive, and that people are willing to make that 5-hour drive, not because they can't watch a Goofy movie at home in the comfort, of their own couch with their own snacks and restroom. But it, again, Serena, goes back to this idea. We don't want to just watch the movie. We want to watch the movie with other people. We want to sort of have that shared experience in a movie theater. It's not about the merchandise or the pins or the celebrities or the autographs. I think it's about doing these things with other people in the room.
Yeah. And I went to the Goofy movie one that they did here, and it was like, I don't know, like Rocky Horror Picture Show type of, where people dressed up in the theater. They had bouncing balls that people would pass through the audience. They had a giant inflatable car, just like Goofy's from the movie, that people passed over their heads when they would drive. They gave you a map with stickers, and along the way there was sticker stops, and they would put up a sign and be like, sticker stop, and everybody would take out their stickers and put it on them. Like, it was a whole vibe, and glow things. And I mean, it was just it was a whole experience that wasn't about watching a movie that all of us could quote. It was about just having a good time with a bunch of people that love this movie. And now that I've done that, I'm like, okay, I have to do the Home Alone one. These are really, really fun.
Yeah, and I again, I think there's something for everyone. They are in multiple locations, and they truly are experiential. It's not just, hey, we're going to rent at a theater and watch this movie together. It celebrates the seasons. It celebrates some of our favorite movies. It celebrates some of our favorite characters, and most importantly, I think I love the fact that it celebrates Walt and his journey.
Yeah.
So, speaking of movies and television, nice segue, Mongello. Number 3 on my list is really, and I'm sort of going to consolidate, and we can do an entire show about some of these announcements, but is really sort of what we got on the big and small screen. And I'm going to preface this, and I told you, I said this in the room, and you know, I think you agreed with me, or you just pacifying me to get me to shut up. But this is the most excited I have been in a long time about what is coming to the theaters and to Disney Plus. We are getting what we wanted, and we're also getting the things that we didn't know that we needed. And what I mean by that is, let's start with Toy Story, right? It's going to celebrate 30 years with 3 different announcements. The original Toy Story is returning to theaters September 12th for the 30th anniversary. Again, not that you can't watch it on Disney Plus. We're going to go to the theater because we want to have that big screen experience with other people. Toy Story 5 releases June 19th, featuring this very cool sort of toys versus tech storyline with some new characters like Smarty Pants, voiced by Conan O'Brien. And then the Buzz Lightyear balloon is going to return to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade with a brand new design. But I want to quickly touch on Toy Story 5, Serena, because this is the movie that nobody asked for. We're like, oh no, are you really going to the well one more time? But we got to see the first 5 minutes, and I was all in. Like, I was all back in. I'm like, bring on Toy Story 5. Like, I was like, I want to go home and watch Toy Story again. I haven't seen it in so long. And that's what I mean. It's like, I don't think anybody was demanding a Toy Story 5, but man, I'm excited to see what's coming.
It looks so good. I was shocked. I was like, my first reaction was a bit of an eye roll, like, oh, we're just gonna keep milking this franchise. And then immediately, within seconds, I was like, okay, all right, I'm in. Sign me up. Yep. There's a lot more stories to tell. These characters are so beloved, you know, and they're so good at knowing how to keep pace with the times. And obviously, yeah, the technology, toys with tech, they had sort of all these smart toys coming into the picture. There's a lot of material there that they can do. And I'm in.
I got the sense that this is not making Toy Story 5 for the sake of making Toy Story 5, or because we know, look, we as Disney fans, we're an interesting breed. We will complain about, another sequel, and then the sequel will go out and make $1 billion. So it's hard to deny the opportunity to do that. But this is one that I was like, wow, I'm really excited to see, much more than I was, I think, for Toy Story 4. This one looks good. I love the timeliness and the relevancy of it that you mentioned. Yeah. We also saw that Pixar's future slate is now extending through the decade. We saw that, Gato is coming in 2027. The Incredibles 3 is coming in 2028. Coco 2 is coming 2028 plus. But we also saw a bit of the March 2026 release of Hoppers, which admittedly, Serena, I had heard nothing about. I knew nothing about. I'm like, here's another movie we got to see some of Hoppers. And again, I'm like, I'm all in. Like, bring on Hoppers. Again, these two alone, like, it filled my little emotional heart and cup with excitement for Disney movies again.
It did. They look so good. It felt like very familiar. Like it felt like a return to the Pixar that we've loved. And, lately they've not been hitting a lot of home runs. They've had some, but this felt like everything we love about Pixar, which is take something that doesn't seem like it should be alive and have feelings and make us love it even more. And that's what they're doing with Hoppers. I had seen, like, there was a viral clip of like a lizard being like lizard, lizard, lizard. And I thought, what is that? That's so weird. And Yeah, but the whole premise of it, along with the stars, I mean, it was John Hamm is going to have a role. Like, it looked brilliant. I definitely will see it.
And if you haven't heard of Hoppers, as I didn't, basically the story is about a student who hops into this robotic beaver. Which, when I say it out loud, it sounds like, what is it? Trust me, it's going to make sense, and it does. It has that whatever I might have felt was missing from some of the recent films. I'm like, it's got it. Like, this thing seems to have it again, just like Disney Animation unveiled Hex for 20. Again, there's a lot coming in a short period of time. There's a new film called Hex, which is going to release next November. It follows an awkward teenage boy, so I can immediately relate, and his type A mom, it still tracks, who discovers that some of his weird traits and quirks are actually magical powers that transports them into this secret world of magic. A topic that I don't think really has been covered like this in a Disney movie. I think this is just the topic alone, Serena, is going to appeal to a lot of people. But again, we saw a little bit of the concept art. We're already on the high from stuff that we had seen. And this too, even the little that we know about it, the concept art looked beautiful.
It did look beautiful. And people have criticized not having enough original movies. That's been something that, people say about Disney animation. So here we have an original concept, original movie. It's not a sequel. Let's hope that they do, pull out a great story. That's what Disney does best, is their storytelling. So yeah, the concept and everything looked really, really good. I'm very excited about it.
And don't worry, more sequels are coming. If you love sequels,
Yeah.
Disney has a lot. Zootopia 2, I loved, and my kids still love Zootopia 1. That's coming out in this November 2025, with some new characters like Mayor Windancer, voiced by Patrick Warburton, who was in the room. Again, people lost their minds. And EMT Otter and the Baroness, both are voiced by Yvette Nicole Brown. I'm not sure if I'm reading into this, but I saw EMT Otter and I'm like, that's a brilliant reference, because I read it as Emmett Otter, which is a reference to Emmett Otter on Jug Band Christmas. Or am I seeing things that don't actually exist?
Oh, I didn't think about that, but yeah, maybe so. They love their Easter eggs, so that would not surprise me.
If it wasn't an Easter egg, I'm making it my own Easter egg, and I'm going to just think of it as Emmett Otter. After nearly a decade, Ice Age is returning. We forget now Ice Age is part of the Disney family. Ice Age Boiling Point is going to release in February 2027. Diary of a Wimpy Kid, the diaries continue to go on. That is going to be on Disney Plus. The Last Straw releases December 5th, 2025. And lest we forget that Disney also owns Marvel, we did get a very funny video message from Anthony and Joe Russo, the director of Avengers Doomsday. They were joined by Paul Rudd, who, again, speaking of magical powers, does not seem to age, but he's reprising his role as Ant-Man for the 5th Avengers film. And there was nothing really new that we got other than this message, but it really talks about the scope of the project. They called it the biggest movie that they've ever done, and I think including a little bit of a teaser of some of the replayed footage that we've seen before really is just helping to set the tone, set the excitement for Doomsday.
Yeah, Paul Rudd, like you said, he is I don't know what kind of voodoo he's got going on, but I want some of it. Like, he's amazing. But the little teaser they showed was great, and then they re-showed that clip of all of those director's chairs with all of those names on it, and when you really see it lined up, you just realize how many big stars are involved in Marvel, and of course having Robert Downey Jr. in Doomsday, like we're not going to see it. I mean, obviously
Right.
We're going to see it. It the scope of it seems huge.
And understand what I mean by this. Like, a lot of the movies that have come out have done very, very well in box offices. They have their fandoms. But at the end of this, I felt like there was almost a little bit of a realignment from the studios and from Pixar and from Marvel. Like, okay, we've tried some other things, not everything. You don't always hit a home run every time you get up to bat. However, we are going back to what we do best, creating the stories and the characters that you know, love, and some that you don't know, but I think are going to fall in love with. And again, I had this renewed sense of excitement, not just about waiting to see it when it comes on Disney Plus, but getting back to that theater on opening weekend and seeing it with other people.
Yeah, that's what you want, right? You want people to actually want to go to the theater and have a movie that, again, an experience in real life. You're not at home. You're out there with other fans. There's an energy to that as well. And, if they can give people an experience with their families, especially with those Disney animation movies, I think, we miss that. I miss that. Like, I love a movie theater experience.
And the fact that we got to see not just, some concept art, but some of these previews and trailers that have not been shown before, those are the little surprise moments. Those are the gifts that somebody asked me before I went. He said, what are you looking forward to? Somebody from Disney said this to me. And I said, it's the stuff that you haven't told us is coming yet. I'm there for all the things. I don't want to know everything when I walk in the door. I want to be surprised. The movies were the first surprise. You may or may not have seen this, but metaphorically speaking, Serena, before Destination D23, there were mobs of people with torches and pitchforks, like so sad, so mad, so clearly angry, X, I'm looking at you, that there was no Disney Parks panel this year. And why am I even going? And what are they doing? And I'm never going to Disney World again. Just slow down, because let's go over to the Disney Parks. I said this before, I said it over the weekend, nobody had this on their bingo card. But number 4, which really could have been and maybe should have been number 1, the Magic Kingdom is getting a historic Carousel of Progress update with a Walt Disney audio animatronics figure coming to the Carousel of Progress, the first major update since 1993, which doesn't sound like long ago, but it's almost 30 years. And the Walt animatronic, which we saw earlier in Disneyland in 2025, is going to be added to a new introductory scene with the heart of the attraction, I think, remaining intact. Again, nobody saw it coming. The room lost their mind. And it's funny because the conversation has happened over and over again, probably even between us, about updating Carousel of Progress. Well, how do you do it? Can you do it? Should you do it? Is it the final scene? Is it the first scene? Do you start from scratch? I think this is almost the only way you can do it, is by having Walt Disney come in and talk about this attraction that he was so intimately involved in. It is not going to be the same figure in his classic gray suit. If you go back and watch, go to YouTube, and there's a video of Walt talking about the Carousel of Progress in a much more almost Mr. Rogers-like casual pants, and he's got his tie and he's got his blue button-up sweater. It's a little bit more of like a comfortable, relaxed Walt, and I like the fact that this is not going to be a carbon copy of what we have in Disneyland, which, again, I think until you see it in person, you cannot and should not judge it. I think it is spectacular and well done. I am very, very excited for this update to an attraction that I still love, not for the air conditioning, but for the content.
It's one of my favorite attractions at the Magic Kingdom. And I agree. This is when Disney is really getting it right, is when they announce something and it sounds like, well, yeah, obviously that's the obvious thing that they should do. Of course, that's the clear choice to make. And that's how I felt about this. Like, I wasn't thinking about that. Like, oh, they should add a Walt animatronic to Carousel of Progress. But as soon as they said it, I was like, that's perfect. That's literally perfect. What a great way to update an attraction, give it a whole new life, give it a whole new reason to visit, introduce people to Walt. This is the attraction that is Walt's name is on it. It was something that he was really passionate about. So he gets to tell you in his own words why he loves this attraction so much, why it's part of the storytelling in his theme parks. And then we get to have that sort of time travel moment where we get to follow this family that we've loved through all these decades. It's a perfect way to blend old and new and keep Walt in the parks. I loved it. I love everything about it.
if you go to next time you go to Carousel of Progress and you go to the final scene, look all the way to the right at the little cork board next to where the mom is working, and there still is a little handwritten note there you have to zoom in on. It says, Marty called, wants changes. Marty, you finally got your changes, and Walt is coming to Walt Disney's Carousel of Progress. I can't wait. Knowing the love and the care and the respect and the importance and the meticulous attention to detail that was brought to the attraction to Disneyland, I cannot wait to see what they do here in Walt Disney World. All right, I want to keep going. We have a lot, and we're only on number 5. Let's stay in Magic Kingdom. Obviously, there's a lot happening there, but we learned a phrase that I've never heard from Imagineering before in terms of Villains Land and the architecture, which is revealed as conjured architecture, which is going to be both inspired by the Art Nouveau styles from 1800s Europe. A Disney legend, Aries was there, which I love. He was an animator for Jafar and Gaston. He's consulting on the project, which I love, focusing on, again, on a lot of these characters' big personalities and the bold influences. But again, I love the fact that they gave us a peek at the not just the how it's being done, but the why, right? Going to the sense of how do you even start thinking of a Villains Land? Well, it starts with this conjured architecture philosophy inspired by that Art Nouveau. And, they showed us pictures from research trips to Paris and Barcelona. So there's that modernism sort of influence on the surreal, dark spell-like design that's going to be there.
Yeah, they talked about these sort of natural motifs that seem cursed and bringing in like organic designs, stained glass, rich jewel toned, but then like merging all of that together with something that feels like it's grown into a cursed situation. I was thinking about like the scene in Sleeping Beauty where Maleficent's vines and thorns sort of grow and become part of the castle, and it gets dark and spooky. There's a lot of like richness there that they can play into sort of a place. Disney's really good at creating something brand new that looks like it's been there for eons of time, and I can see how they could blend that and make this look like something that has been worn and sort of seen all of these types of struggles and curses from these various villain stories that they add to the park. It's cool to see that some of these research trips that these Imagineers do become legendary. You think about Joe Rohde and the Nepal trips that he did in creating Animal Kingdom, like they become just as much of the story for us fans. Will this be a story that we're looking back on once we are so familiar with this Villains Land that we've come to love and think about, oh, this is where they got the inspiration for this. Like, it's cool to kind of think about that.
Yeah. I love that it is inspired by fantasy, but grounded in reality, because we didn't get any new concept art, and we didn't need it, because this was enough to sort of get you excited, because now in our mind's eye, we are able to sort of conjure what, like you said, what we think it's going to be. It's going to be this French sort of Art Nouveau style, but with those vines and sort of with this dark, metaphorical cloud hanging over it. I think this got a lot of people very excited as well. Speaking of parks attractions and tying into movies, number 6 on my list is that Tron is going to get a red hot movie tie-in overlay, because Tron Light Cycle Run is going to get a red and orange overlay starting September 15th in just a couple of weeks over at Magic Kingdom, and the next day over at Shanghai Disney, featuring music from Nine Inch Nails, the soundtrack to promote the upcoming Tron Aries film, which I'm a huge Tron nerd. You might see my identity disc in the background behind me. They also talked about how the original Tron franchise is getting a complete 4K treatment, so it's going to be remastered in 4K Ultra HD, same day, September 16th, and then Tron Aries releases October 10th, featuring that new film score from Nine Inch Nails. Again, Walt Disney World doesn't do a lot of overlays of attraction. Haunted Mansion Holiday, I'm looking at you, because you just can't close those attractions, but being able to do something like this and have, as soon as you see that red, you're already starting to think of Tron Aries. I love the fact that they had one of the new light cycle props out for photos in the hallways. So I'm digging this. I love Tron. I love the attraction, so I'm looking forward to the overlay too.
Yeah, the lighting looks amazing. And I like that they said that there'll be, music and that all it takes is lighting and music to change the tone of a ride. So I think it's perfect. The movie, they showed us also a clip, like an extended clip of the movie. It looks so good. I'm very excited to see it. That's going to be another like again, movie theater
Mhm.
experience movie, which I
Right.
love.
You have to see that in that is going to be an opening night like Theater 1, AMC, Dolby. Nobody
Yes.
talk to me. I need to sort of lock in and check out Tron. All right. Number 7, as long as we're talking about the parks, it is not just Walt Disney World and Disneyland, but the international parks are expanding with new attractions and entertainment. World of Frozen is opening this spring in Disneyland Paris, as Walt Disney Studios Park is going to officially be renamed Disney Adventure World. We saw a video of Elsa's Ice Palace being installed. Hong Kong Disneyland is getting Wayfinders, which is a Moana inspired table service restaurant later this year. There's also going to be a new party coming to Disney California Adventure. And I mention this as its own thing, Serena, because we were talking earlier. I think there is, for us domestically, I have started to see this new and renewed, not just interest in traveling overseas, but actual travel overseas. I think as more people are going to these international parks and sharing their experiences, the accessibility, the ease of traveling, and not having to worry about language barriers and things like that, more and more people are now just not watching videos of what it looks like to visit these parks, but they're actually starting to book their own trips as well.
Yeah, that's really exciting. As someone who's not done to the Asia parks yet, I've got to do it, but it does make it accessible. Like it doesn't feel like it's so far reaching, especially when you get to see so many different people sharing their visits. I also love that they showed us them assembling the ice castle up high and how it's all these various pieces because it's something that's sort of in the distance. So it's up high, but it looked beautifully done. And they said what spring? It's
Yeah.
spring of 26, so that's like right around the corner.
Yeah, and I think if you can and are able to visit the international parks, you absolutely should. I think, if I'm speaking, if you're domestic here in the U.S., I think Disneyland Paris is a great first step to do that. It's very accessible. It's very easy to get through. It's very easy to navigate. And then, look, as long as you're there, just keep on going. Just keep going east and go over to the parks in Asia. Shanghai and Hong Kong are like right across the street. And then don't go to Japan. Do not go to Japan because it will spoil you for the rest of the planet and vacationing anywhere else. I think Tokyo Disney
Oh,
Sea is the best of the best of the best. Again, another conversation for another day. For number 8, let's go back. Let's ground ourselves back in the Magic Kingdom because the night before Destination D started, we had an opportunity to get a sneak peek. Well, actually, it was opening day of the Beak and Barrel Tavern over in Magic Kingdom, and again, the hype leading up to this as one of Disney's most storytelling rich dining venues is real. I still believe that the Haunted Mansion Parlor, I know I'm a broken record, is on the Disney treasure, is possibly the single greatest storytelling and placemaking space Disney's ever created. Beak and Barrel, I need to go back a few more times because you are very much giving that a run for its money because I think it blends. I think we sort of agree that the same thing. It is this blending and marriage of influences from Trader Sam's and Oga's and the Haunted Mansion Parlor with Pirates theming, the interactive, very immersed crew, hidden details, great menu, a repeatability factor. I think that comes because there's so much to see, there's so much to experience, and it sort of does not go on a very short looping cycle. I was very, very, very impressed. My head was on a swivel, like I needed a neck brace when I was done because I was just trying to take it all in.
I was hugely impressed. I don't know what I kind of expected, but I completely agree. Haunted Mansion Parlor is the bar. They set the bar. I mean, that one blew all of the other bars out. Like it was just like that was on a whole other level, a league of its own. And it was the way that they showed us, wow, Disney can really combine everything we love about attractions into a dining or a lounge venue, like that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, on a ride, you're in a ride vehicle, they're controlling where you go and what you see and what you do. Whereas these spaces are ones where people are roaming free, and yet they manage to give you the same type of storytelling and experience with things happening in almost a show element around the spaces. But I also love with Beak and Barrel, it's not too much. It's not something happening constantly where you also can't have a conversation with who you're with or you feel overwhelmed. It's just enough where it's like, oh, this little fun element. Oh, that's cute. Oh, that was so fun. And then you get a little break, you know?
Yeah, very much. It feels like Trader Sam's, but at a larger scale. First of all, it's a beautifully designed space, and I love the communal table right in the middle, much like Trader Sam's has. I love the fact that there's little rooms. There's more intimate spaces in the corner, in the back. If you're in that center area, yes, you can see the parrot come out and have some of those interactive elements around the beautifully designed bar. But you also can sit farther away, and there's sort of like little sweetheart tables, and there's booths, and there's the cool little jail cell that you can sit in. And you almost forget what this space looked like before it was Beak and Barrel, right? When it used to be the merchandise location, when it used to be a Pirates League, way back when. It was sort of the pirate bibbity version of the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. Really, really, I think a very smart use of the space and design and theming. And again, I want to go back. I want to give it a little bit of time to sort of go through, like any restaurant. I want to sort of let it go through its not that I saw any growing pains, but let it go through its time and then go back and have a full, 45-minute experience when I go. Because the food was we also tried the arepas and one of the desserts, and it was excellent.
Yeah, it was really good. The drinks are really good, very solid. I also think that, it's going to be massively popular. It's going to stay popular. So it's going to become a dining reservation that you're going to want to prioritize if you're planning a visit. This is going to be like right at 60 days, put this one in the top of your list, because I don't know that the hype's going to die off on this one. I think this is going to be one, because after we were there 45 minutes and I just thought, oh, I want more time. So I know if people are visiting, it's not like a one and done. I think this is a space that you're going to want to visit a couple times, maybe sit in different areas, try a different drink, try a different snack. So because of that, I think it's going to stay popular for a while. So definitely prioritize this on your ADRs. Make sure you get to visit it, because it's worth it.
And I thought about it sort of in context too of what else we have gotten in the parks, specifically in Walt Disney World. Geo 82, I'm looking at you. Look at these two new venues, completely opposite ends of the spectrum. Geo 82, a much more elevated, adults-only experience with unique cocktails and menu items, versus a storytelling-driven space like this. Again, the something for everyone, really trying to create places and spaces and things for whoever you are and whatever it is that you're looking for. And the fact that they are inside the Disney parks, you almost forget that you're in a theme park when you're there.
Yeah. And Beak and Barrel too is family friendly, which is nice. It's great for the whole family. And they had a really nice like little platter, kind of specifically designed for kids, with a fun little lemonade drink sold in, given to you in like a fun little cup, and little cake pops and stuff. So they're definitely making it something that the whole family can enjoy, which I like.
And I also love looking at it from the opposite side. We talked about it, the crew being interactive. I love, like Galaxy's Edge, like some of these other, the Haunted Mansion Parlor, the crew is able to sort of, they are not servers and bussers. They are actual characters that are part of the show. And I love that it not only gives them the license and freedom and flexibility to have some fun with it, but for us as guests, being able to have those interactions, which is going to lead me to number 9, because I'm trying to go faster.
Yes.
Let's go from land to sea. We are huge fans, I know, of Disney Cruise Line, both very excited about what is coming to the Disney Destiny. We've talked a little bit about what we know is coming in terms of characters, but keeping in this theme of villains that we're going to touch on again, This ship is also going to feature some of those villainous encounters. For example, what we saw that was new, we'd heard about Cruella, we heard a little bit about Loki, but we saw the first picture of Dr. Facilier offering a meet and play experience with parlor tricks and card games and magic on the Destiny, launching this November. We've also saw some reveals of some of the new menu items, some of the new cocktails. Again, Serena, not just here is just a plain cocktail in a souvenir glass on a menu. What we're going to see at the Sanctum is going to be this elevated, almost experiential crafting of the drink that is served to you on this levitating platform.
Literally levitating platform, like actually in front of you levitating. My excitement for Disney Destiny, I didn't think could get any higher. And now I just, the experiences that they're explaining how they're going to use the space, especially in the Grand Hall, which is the most beautiful thing to me about the Wish class ships, is that huge center area that they can use as a place to come together for several moments throughout your cruise, and as a way to really have continued storytelling. There's lighting, there's like a show element built into that space. And now that they're saying, Loki is going to be a part of that, they showed a picture of the Grand Hall with his green light and him up on this balcony, sort of grandstanding, in the way that we know that he can do. And Cruella, again, all of these spaces that you immediately, when they tell you, you see it. You're like, yes, I can see exactly how that's going to work, how much fun that's going to be. And a lot of sort of surprise and delight type of things that aren't necessarily going to be set in stone, but might, come upon them throughout your cruise, which I love. I cannot wait to see that ship.
Well, and the consistent thread and it's why I put this here, is because for a long time we've been talking about and hearing and sort of anticipating this increased level of interactivity and personalization of your experience. And I think when we hear that, we think of this, right? We think of that coming to our phones in terms of the Play Disney Parks app, or getting personalized message, or Genie, or whatever it might be. I actually think it's different. And I think what we're starting to see is that interactivity, that personalization, those sort of unique experiences are not from your devices, but from the people, right? We're seeing it at Beak and Barrel. We're seeing it with these new meet and play type experiences that we're going to start to see on the Destiny. I think they're going to sort of roll those back to other ships as well. It's not just lining up for a quick chat and a photo with the character. You're going to meet that character and you're going to be taken somewhere else, right? Again, very much sort of in the same vein, I think, of the Galactic Star Cruiser, where, again, it did not necessarily go on the way it was initially planned, but I do think there are some elements from that experiment that are being introduced into the parks and into Disney Cruise Line. I think that's what we're going to start to see on the Disney Destiny. It's what I'm very, very excited to see coming this November. All right, moving on. Let's get into double digits. Very quickly, it's been too long since I talked about food. Over in Disneyland, Napa Rose is getting this very extensive makeover. We saw some new concept art being released for Napa Rose. Again, this elevated craftsman design, that timeless architecture, the little sort of more modern, sophisticated Californian architecture too. I mention this here because I think it's continuing on like Geo 82, where sometimes you think about going to a Disney park or going to a Disney resort, you think it's quote unquote theme park food. I have not felt that way in decades. I have this pear-shaped physique to prove it, but I love the fact that they are offering upscale experiences that are not necessarily things like Victoria and Albert's, but you can go and have a very elegant special occasion, anniversary, birthday, business meeting meal, whatever it might be, at places like Napa Rose, which is, very clearly one of probably the top 5 restaurants on the West Coast.
Yeah, it has the most beautiful bar area too. And the concept art they showed of the outdoor dining looked stunning. And that's actually a place where you can be outside and not want to die from the heat. So that makes a lot of sense in California.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. And at Napa Rose, you talk about some of the more difficult advanced dining reservations to get. I think that is going to be increased even more so. All right, moving on back into the parks. One of the panels that I really enjoyed was about the castles. And so number 11 for me is sort of the castle history and the updates. We got a lot of rare. I'm a historian. I'm a history guy, but we got a lot of rare details and photos and videos we never saw before about Sleeping Beauty Castle and Cinderella Castle and the mosaics and the dragon in Disneyland Paris and the spires. Guys like Tom Morris coming in, dispelling some of those longtime rumors and urban legends. We learned about the swan sculptures in Shanghai and this philosophy of plussing the castles over time. And, I loved even sort of simple things like, they talked about the design inspiration of Neuschwanstein and sort of influencing Sleeping Beauty Castle, and such great use of overlaying of images to show, while it was inspired in part, they deliberately made it less similar because they predicted that castle would eventually appear on things like calendars and puzzles, and they didn't want that confusion. But we learned about the influences, and we saw videos of the drawbridge in Disneyland Paris. We learned about, that there's snails on some of the spires, and there's always been sort of disputes about how or why they were there. And look, that castle in the dungeon is reason to get on a plane and go to Paris itself.
It is. I love that they got to sort of nerd out about some of this stuff, because like the snail thing was like, no, we just, he said, what about snails? And we were like, yeah, that's funny. Let's do snails. Like, I love that it was literally like there was no story. And that was the story, is we thought it would be cool. And we thought people would be like, why snails? I also loved the story, the backstory of the Stitches. The one day, I think it was one day, right? It was Stitch TP's the castle.
My head is hung in sadness. I did not. That for me, Serena, was not one of my fondest views of. I know I'm a nerd. Like, it's just a castle. I was like, I thought it was disrespectful. I know it's stupid because I know it's a goof and I know it's a joke and I know it's to promote the movie. And I'm like, I thought it was disrespectful, the toilet paper in the castle. Well, I'll get over it eventually.
The funny thing is, they're saying it was very much not received well. Especially by people who were visiting that day and wanted their photos with the castle, understandably. But I loved the way the Imagineers talked about it as almost like it was like almost urban legend to them. Like basically, can you believe these guys had the guts to do this? How cool that they actually did this. Like, that was crazy. And that somebody actually let them do it. It was hilarious. They even had Stitch come on the stage and basically TP the whole stage, as just an example of the ridiculousness of it.
I will say, and again, one of the biggest surprises, one of the things that got most people most excited and got the biggest cheers over the weekend was paint. Because Cinderella Castle is returning to the classic color scheme of grays and creams and blues and some of those touches of gold, moving away from that pink and gold 50th anniversary color. I love every single thing about it. I think the castle is beautiful right now, but I do love that traditional castle look. But the reason why I sort of put all these together is I wanted to have this. It's not just about the return of the color of Cinderella Castle. I think this really reflects the Walt philosophy of plussing, right? The day after Disneyland opened, he's always tweaking, upgrading, and adding details to make things better. And I think these castles are living icons that are designed with room, not just for improvement, but evolution, whether it is the updating the color palette, adding the history, adding some of the hidden Easter eggs like the coat of arms or the mosaics or carvings, and being able to enhance the castle and their roles in things like the nighttime spectaculars, where they're treated like characters in the story and not just backdrops, right? So they're not just these static monuments, they're living, evolving icons, and I think that carry not only sort of very deep Imagineering artistry, but some of that whimsy and that humor. I love that story from Tom. And I think more importantly, there's emotional resonance with these because they are these timeless landmarks, but are also these ever plus storytelling canvases as well.
Yeah, I love to, like, we heard from the creator, the show designer for Happily Ever After, and how they treated that show. They treated the castle as a character. Like, the castle is a character that actually speaks and talks and has its own journey throughout the show. And that's the first time I've like really thought about the fact that maybe that's why the audience connects so much with that show. That show has just become so beloved. Maybe that's part of it, because to us, the castles are far more than a building. A Disney fan sees the castles as really, they become the icon that represents the whole park for us. So it's interesting to see that even from a show standpoint, that's how they approach it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So next on my list is still tied to the parks, but going back to the screens, because sometimes some of the most exciting and sometimes even maybe interesting and emotional trailers are not necessarily for the big budget Dolby surround sound movies in theaters, but what we get on things like Disney Plus. And in the Creating the Happiest Place on Earth panel, filmmaker Leslie Iwerks unveiled a trailer for a new documentary called Disneyland Handcrafted, which is going to premiere this winter on Disney Plus and on Disney YouTube, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
Leslie Iwerks, she's Oscar and Emmy nominated, very deep Disney lineage. Her grandfather was Ub Iwerks, her father is Don Iwerks, who are both obviously Disney legends. And this is the one I am, again, a sucker for, archival footage I've never seen. And as somebody who's, I do a lot of research, and there is so much that nobody has ever been seen or even scanned before from the archives, including like these raw 16 millimeter reels that were originally used in programs that never saw the light of day, and like even for Wonderful World of Color. And it's this very sort of unfiltered, we want to be the fly on the wall. That's what this is, right? About the construction of Disneyland through the lenses and the eyes of the artists and the craftsmen who worked. And I still don't know how they built this in a year, but they did it. And I think it's perfect timing, obviously, with the 70th anniversary. And I love that this highlights some of the people who we don't think about when we go into the parks. The people whose names are not on the windows, but the workers and the craftsmen who are, building the literal and figurative foundation for all of these Disney parks worldwide. I know that the trailer is now online, and I don't think they gave a specific release date for it, but I do know it comes out this winter on Disney Plus. And
it looks so good. It looks so good, honestly. And I also love that, again, it's highlighting Walt's vision and how quick it was. So fast. Like when you see the footage of the space before they're building Disneyland, it just, you just struck by, the vision that he had, and it was so clear and it came to fruition, but how many people that obviously it took to do something on this scale that had never been done, and to do it in that short time frame. I can't wait to see some of this footage that they've got, because even just the bits they were showing us is stuff I'd never seen before.
And I think it goes to Walt too. I think now we almost take it for granted. When they're making a Marvel movie, there's a whole another crew that is making of the Marvel movie. This is 1954, and Walt was like, we need to just get cameras out there and just film everything. And it shows his literal and figurative vision for the importance of capturing what, you want to talk about something that is much more than, quote unquote, just a theme park. And to be able to see that, I love being able to see the never before seen stuff before. So I know a lot of history nerds like myself are very, very excited for this. All right, I specifically put this at number 13 because we talked about, getting what we wished for. And for a number of years, we know people have been asking for and getting more Disney villains. And they really are taking center stage across all of the properties. And there was a Disney Villains Icons of Evil panel. Again, we learn more from Imagine. I've known Wyatt Winter for years, and Caroline May. They talked about, construction for Villains Land is on the horizon. They talked about that conjured architecture. But they also talked about the Disney Villains Unfairly Ever After show over at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Over in Disneyland Resort at Oogie Boogie Bash, there's not just this focus on the villain, but there's also a brand new villain encounter, Syndrome from The Incredibles. I haven't been to Oogie Boogie Bash in years, and now I want to go just to see Syndromes from The Incredibles. There's also other enhancements to Villains Grove and the Frightfully Fun Parade. We talked about Dr. Facilier and Maleficent and Cruella on Disney Destiny. Look, even in the merchandise, right, that Bath and Body Works Villains collection, Mattel introduces a new Ursula collectible dolls. There are new villains and entertainment coming to Hong Kong Disneyland and the overseas parks. And I think this is Disney sort of saying, we hear you, we know you want more villains, and we're going to give it to you across the line in spades.
Yeah. I think people are like, yes, more. Absolutely. It's so interesting to see. I don't know. I feel like they are tapping into something that people have been asking for a while. Oogie Boogie was one of the first events that really offered so much villain encounters, and sort of it became the point of the entire event. But Disney World hadn't really kind of gotten on that boat yet. But with Villains Land, obviously it's coming. But even with the Destiny and seeing the focus on villains and the Destiny, I don't know if it ties into the sort of Disney adults and the fact that so many adults are coming and looking for experiences maybe that aren't just made for kids, but they understand it, they get it. I may have bought a few villain items from that Bath and Body collection myself. Yeah, I love it. I think it's super exciting. And it's really interesting to see that obviously the response has been great, so they know they're on the right track.
Yeah, Disney fans definitely have a dark side, right? So, and that's leading me to the next thing on my list. I'm sort of trying to sort of tie these together so it makes sense. Disney fans have this wonderfully playful dark side. And when they made this announcement, I don't know if I leaned over to you and was like, did they say what I think they just said? Did they just talk about murder in the Destination D panel? Because Disneyland's Haunted Mansion Holiday is getting not just a new gingerbread house, but it's called A Murder So Foul. And I was like, wait a minute, what is he saying? Is it F-O-W-L or F-O-U-L? But this year's Haunted Mansion Halloween ballroom centerpiece is going to be this towering gingerbread house called A Murder So Foul. Again, continuing this tradition of these very elaborate, one-of-a-kind gingerbread creations that have really been going on since 2001. This one is going to be 13 feet tall. It is going to be very, very dramatic, as it should be. 400 shingles, 200 pounds of gingerbread dough, and a murder of, not murdering, but murder of 13 crows, and there'll be hidden Mickeys and things like that. I love the use of the crows, not just in the title, but in the thing, and sort of this nod to the ravens that appeared in the original Haunted Mansion attraction. But again, they gave us a sense of the creation and the craftsmanship and these, I think they said there's 8 pastry chefs that build this over like 9 different days. And for the Haunted Mansion holiday over there, it runs to, I think, right early January, or that first week of early January.
Yeah, they released a video of it, which was so ridiculous because it's like the gingerbread ravens are talking to the chef, and it's ridiculous in the best way possible. Like I love the humor that they have with that entire project, but I also love how, yes, there's a dark side in this villain thing, but it's also like just very wholesome too. Like I maybe it's just me because I've been seeing a lot of Halloween Horror Nights coverage from media friends right now, and everything I see, I'm like, ooh, that's just not my thing.
You are not going to need a poncho in Haunted Mansion Holiday.
No poncho will be needed, and you're not going to leave disturbed in any way. Like it's still done in a very Disney way, but they do kind of get that little tongue-in-cheek humor with it too.
And it's not just domestically, right? We obviously have the very not so scary Halloween party here, which we experienced this past week. That parade I just absolutely love, and I may or may not have sung it in the car on the way home. That's fine. But the international parks are getting it too, right? Disneyland Paris is getting the Unlucky Nugget overlay for their Lucky Nugget Saloon, Shanghai, and the overseas parks. Even though they don't necessarily celebrate Halloween, they do Halloween very, very well. They're getting some Halloween-themed foods, Tokyo Disney Sea as well. We've talked about it in the past. In one of the scariest things I've ever seen in a Disney park was this during Halloween season walk through, very interactive, very dark, and I'm still slightly disturbed attraction that was built temporarily in Magic Kingdom for it. So they do Halloween well, not just domestically, but overseas as well. All right, let's move on from land back to sea again, because they did also talk more about the lounges on Disney Cruise Line, specifically on the Disney Destiny. Continuing on with this inspiration from Pirates, we have the Cask and Cannon. We got a little more information about some of the rum collection and the bootleg beers and this very cozy, treasure-filled tavern, not just with stuff on the walls, but in terms of some of the cool little nods and Easter eggs that are there. I am very, very excited for the Sanctum Sanctorum, inspired by Doctor Strange. In the center of the center of Deck 4, we got again, we saw some of those magical inspired cocktails and spirits and coffees and some of the food items as well. And we also learned too that the Haunted Mansion parlor, sort of piggybacking on the success of Disney Treasure, while it is going to basically be a mirror image of the same, it sounds like there's going to be not just new cocktail mugs, but new cocktails as well.
Yes, that it's going to have a new menu, or at least new offerings there, which for those of us that have done the Treasure, it just gives you another reason to visit that ship, as opposed to, you might say, oh, well, that's the best thing on the Destiny and I've already done the Treasure. There's no point. I don't know why you'd say that, because there's always point. But but if that is you, then you definitely have reason to do it for all new drinks. But also, going back to the Sanctum really quick, they had that one that was like lightning. Did you see that?
Is that the mirror dimension?
Yeah. How is that? How is there light? It looked like lightning in a bottle, essentially. And I'm like, I don't understand how you can do that in something that I'm going to then ingest.
Do you remember? You're probably too young. Do you remember many, many, many years ago, they used to sell those
globe things?
The globes that you would turn on and you would touch it, and the quote unquote lightning, the energy bolt, it almost looked like a Tesla coil. The way that it's the same thing, but it's going to happen on your glass in your drink. I don't want to know how the source. You don't want to know how the sorcery happens, but I cannot wait to try it.
Yeah, it looks so cool.
Yeah. So we got things like the Mirror Dimension in the Sanctum, the Chilling Challenge at the Haunted Mansion parlor, and the Dead Man's Chest at the Cask and Cannon. And I mentioned those only by name, and I wanted to specifically talk on those because, again, it's this, every ship, every attraction, every park is not just a mirror. It's not copy and paste. It is this iterative, evolving process to continue to make everybody's experience not just unique, but better than it was before. All right, let's move on to number 16. And I put a few of these together because we're talking about places and spaces and things to do and things to eat and things to see. But as a very, very wise man once said, it takes people to make the dream a reality. And that's, for me, Serena, what this event was about. It was about the people. And number 16 for me, my note only says this: Don Hahn is a treasure. Don Hahn is an absolute treasure. I have had the privilege of getting to know Don over the last number of years. He hosted a few different panels, including Creating the Happiest Place on Earth, celebrating Disneyland's 70th anniversary, the Goofy movie, 30 Standout Years with Bill Farmer and Jason Marsden, and director Kevin Lima. He's going to host that Gold Theater virtual event for the Haunted Mansion holiday. And what I love, I mean, it's a salute to all people, but mostly Don Hahn. What I love about him is when he gets on stage, he's not, and this is not a slight on everybody else, but he's not reading off a teleprompter. He injects so much of his warm, funny, incredibly brilliant personality into everything that he does. So he plays off not just the people on stage, but the audience as well. He's a fan first, in addition to being a brilliant producer, director, author, writer, artist. The list goes on and on and on. But what he does, and the reason why I wanted to sort of put him here, not sort of specifically talk about an individual panel, is there's something that I think unites his panels and projects, and like just the narrative depth, right? Whether he's talking about the origin of Disneyland or a Goofy movie, right? He dives deep into the storytelling, the history, and the emotional resonance, because he comes from the producer, the director, the artist, and fan point of view. I also think, which sometimes is tough in a room like this, is he's able to bridge multiple generations. There were people in the room who were 8 and who were 80, and he's able to connect the origins of Disney magic with modern fandom in a very natural, organic way. And I think it highlights the history and the fan devotion over time. And he also gives us, I want to call it like exclusive access. And what I mean by that is exclusive access, not to the things that he's showing on the screen, but to him, right? So his story, his insider perspective, and these behind the scenes glimpses that don't just come from, well, here's the piece of concept art you haven't seen before, but here's the story that I lived while we were making this. Here's the story of my interaction with this person. And I just think there is a warmth and genuine authenticity and passion and sincerity in his delivery that it affects and influences every session that he's in.
And funny. Like, he could be a stand-up. His comic timing with the way that he interacts with the people that he's with, was like genuinely hilarious. Like, he had the entire room in stitches, and that's just not easy to do because he's just so comfortable. Mm-hmm. He's so, like, you feel like he's just sitting there on his couch shooting the breeze with some people talking about, the good old days.
In a room of 4,000, right? He makes a room of 4,000, like you said, feel like you're sitting in his living room.
Yeah, that's real. That's a talent.
That's a gift.
Truly.
Yeah. And it's genuine. It is not, there's nothing about him is performative. The person you see on stage is the person you see off stage. And yeah, I appreciate that. And I appreciate that he's able to let that come through, especially in a room that large.
I came away a huge fan of his. And also, it reminds me of why I love events like this, because he's not someone who maybe would have been on your radar. He's not we have the Josh Tomorrows and the flashy people of that get a lot of screen time for Disney, but yet you get to actually get FaceTime with people like him, like Becky from the archives, like people who really have incredible stories to share and can bring things to life for you. That's one of the best things about these events.
And he doesn't, and again, I'm not throwing shade on it. He doesn't sit in a green room and he doesn't walk around with an entourage. He's just walking the halls. He's looking at the merchandise. He's attending the panels because he wants to be there. Like, he genuinely loves it. And he loves having conversations with people. I mean, usually I have to look up at him because he's like 11 feet tall, but pictures of he and I together are always very funny because I'm an Ewok and he's, a giant. But yeah, I wanted to call him out because I appreciate him so very much. I'm going to do the same for I'm trying to keep track of number 17. And somebody I've known and watched his journey going back from when I very first started is Stephen Vagnini and the entire Walt Disney Archives team. He did Down the Rabbit Hole with the Walt Disney Archives, which is sort of the thing that I had sort of metaphorically circled because I love Stephen. I love history. I love the archives. And he, alongside Kevin Kern, took us down the rabbit hole for some discoveries and connections and little known facts. And again, I don't know how they dig up some of this archival maps and drawings of Harper Goff and Herb Ryman and early Disneyland and some things that were never published, that were planned for Burbank before they chose Anaheim. And he's also a great storyteller. And there was actually sort of an image of how he put it together to connect the dots of where he was going with all of the stories. And even when I remember specifically when he was talking about Disneyland as and I never thought about this before, as the walkable movie, right? The walkable,
Yes.
the hub and spoke design is this walkable dream, this walkable movie where every land corresponds to a different genre of film. And he talked about, Main Street and the historical continuity, and I think gave us also a deeper look and understanding of the archival research itself. It's not just about preservation, but understanding Walt, understanding the intentions, and I think even more so, keeping that vision, that philosophy alive in modern Imagineering projects, which is why Walt's, he's been gone for so long, but he is still very, very present in everything that Imagineering does.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, how they're presenting this information to us as fans, but they're also sharing this information with everyone who works for the Disney company. Everyone who's present, all of the cast members that are there present, all of the PR teams and the events team and the Imagineers who are there for their own panels are also getting to hear this deep dive into the history of the company that they work for, and that's going to influence their jobs going forward. I'm so happy that they have the job they have and someone is paying them to do the Lord's work here, because I just imagine like them going to whatever boss they have and they're like, well, what was your, week like? What things did you accomplish? And they're like, well, we did this deep dive into Walt's crazy aunt, and them being like, sounds good. Keep it up,
Right. Because on paper, like, who cares about Walt's aunt? But he made it so interesting and so intriguing, and we were like sitting there at the edges of our seat, like, as he's telling this story. And again, I've known him since he worked, I say as a kid, as sort of a kid working with Dave Smith, and then as he went through the archives and working with Becky and over at Imagineering, and even at some of the events that I've done where he came in, we did a Tower of Terror event and he came in and gave a presentation. Ooh. Again, showing things that we had never seen before from Tower of Terror, and I had him on the show, maybe it was a year or so ago, because he's not just picked up the mantle of keeping the archives alive in terms of the research, but more importantly, bringing those stories to the stage, but like massive undertakings like, yeah, I'll keep up the Disney Encyclopedia, this 30,000 page work of trying to keep the information not just updated and relevant, but more importantly, accurate. So yeah, I just like Stephen a lot, personally and professionally. But the first day that I got there, I didn't think I told you this. I sat in my car for a few minutes, and I was very distraught because I said, "Don't look so surprised." I said, "How can I possibly love Becky Cline any more than I already do?" Number 18 is Becky Cline from the Walt Disney Archives. How can I love her anymore? She said, "Hold on to my bagpipe," because you want to talk about, wait, that sounded weirder than it should have. You want to talk about somebody who is the perfect person in the perfect role at the perfect time, not just sort of leading the archives internally in what we don't see in that giant Raiders of the Lost Ark cavernous warehouse that they must have, at least in my mind's eye, but getting up on stage and sharing it with us, whether it is the Three Caballeros and El Grupo, to the Disney Family Legacy with Roy, the Disney Around the Globe, those sort of short interstitial programs, going down the rabbit hole, spotlighting 55 years of the archives, and alongside Michael Vargo, talking about some of the things that they have been curating, sharing some of the stories of, in a very, I think, again, like Don Hahn, I think in a very intimate way, sharing how these items are acquired, how they are preserved, and highlighting some of the recently added pieces that they're able to bring in. Again, connecting to you wherever you are, whether it's, chronologically in your Disney history or age-wise. They're going to make sure that there is something that you're going to go, oh, God, I love that movie. I love that character. I remember that piece. Oh, that ring that they found in, the background of some other movie and were able to sort of preserve it and bring it to the archives. Those are the things that just I appreciate so much about her, not just as an archivist, but as a storyteller.
Yeah, she was everywhere. She was like in 52 panels over the course of the I don't even
A lot
know.
of costume changes. I did not expect Becky Cline to have the most costume changes,
She
but she might
did.
have.
She brought a lot of change of outfits to fit whatever she was talking about. No, you're right. The perfect person in the perfect role at the perfect company. That is her. And she does bring it to life for you. And thank goodness. I mean, we always joke like, oh, they're doing the Lord's work. No, she really is, because this is stuff that matters to us fans, and it's stuff that needs to be preserved. The clock is ticking. Some of these things that they're finding are handwritten letters from people connected to Walt 3 generations ago, that thank goodness somebody's out there finding these things and preserving them and bringing them into the archives, because they'd be lost forever and these stories would never be told. We'd never know it. And all of the stories that they tell give us a more round understanding, broader understanding of the things and how these things were created that we've come to love. She's incredible. I also just kind of want to go like get drinks with her, like take off the name tag, Becky. Let's just get some wine and let's just chat,
And she's Scottish royalty. I mean, there was they literally was like, and they're from Disney, like they're firefighters and the EMT people, current and retired. Like she told her story, and how it relates to Disney, and a Scottish bagpipe troupe comes in and performs with her leading the way.
But I didn't know I needed that until it happened.
Exactly. Right. Because I had gone all the way down the hallway for something else. I was meeting with somebody, and as I came back, I'm like, do I hear bagpipes? Like, am I dying? Is there like and I was like, why would there be bagpipes? Not knowing that, an hour or two later, I'm like, oh, now I get it. Of course it's Becky Cline. But I mentioned that one of the things she did, which leads me to the next person, number 19 on my list, because, and I don't know that this was the one that a lot of people are like, oh, this is the one I want to make sure I don't miss. But this for me was one that was definitely, like, not that I plan on missing it, but God, I'm really happy like I didn't miss it. Because to have that rare opportunity and gift of having a Disney on stage is an absolute privilege and a gift to everyone who was in attendance. Because from the Dreaming Tree to the Disney family, that was a panel moderated by Becky Cline with Roy Patrick Disney. And he is the grandson of Roy O. Disney, the grandnephew of Walt Disney. Again, it's this very large room of 4,000 people, but I just felt that it was this very intimate presentation where he's sharing personal photos and nostalgic stories from his childhood, and it gave a heartfelt glimpse into the Disney family that we cannot get from anywhere else, because he was there, right? He was the one who was there, and talking about memories of great Uncle Walt and his grandpa Roy. There was an emotional tone to this that wasn't like somber or sad or anything, but it was so warm and so personal. And again, these are words I know that keep coming up because it's what I sort of felt the entire time. Getting these candid looks into the family was like sitting down with him and him opening up like a photo album. That's sort of what I felt like. I felt like I was sitting there next to him and he was opening up this photo album, telling stories and, making jokes about the way he used to have to dress in order to get on a plane. And I just felt there was this wonderful emotional balance between, nostalgic and very personal depth and historic resonance. And again, it's connecting the dots. It's this sense of familial legacy that really sort of grounds the focus not on looking at the past, but on future progress as well. And I think it let me not just see, but really sort of feel the personal side of Disney history. I think it was a very significant moment for Disney fans to see him there.
It was really powerful. We have our view of Walt as how it relates to us as Disney fans. But to him, it was just family. And it felt like somebody kind of saying, like you just, are talking to someone and they're like, oh, I have this really cool memory of my grandfather. And, and they share this memory with you. And you're like, oh, that's so sweet. It's so cool that you have that memory. But also, it just happens to be Roy Disney. And it just happens to be this moment that happened inside of Disneyland when he was a little kid running around.
And we have people
park.
that we have a connection to, right? We never obviously met them, but we feel a connection to Walt. We feel a connection and a gratitude to Roy. So it does bring us into that family fold.
Yeah, and it kind of takes somebody who is very two-dimensional to us and makes them three-dimensional, because now we see more layers to them. We see more of how they would relate to somebody as a family member, as someone who is this, older grandparent role to this person. It makes them so much more real.
Mm-hmm. And if you've never been to the Walt Disney Family Museum in San Francisco, you should make the pilgrimage and go. We did a group trip, like a WDW Radio group trip a number of years ago. And it's, you can literally spend all day there, as well you should, because it does do that. It's a lot more of the personal side. Maybe I need to do that again.
Maybe you do.
I think I need to write this down. Group trip. Serena, I'll just put your name. I'll put your name on the list right up on top.
Sounds good.
A couple more we have left before we wrap up. And number 20, you want to talk about taking center stage? Disney on Broadway took center stage. Good golly, Miss Molly. Man, there is nothing like live theater and live performances. And I am happy that this room was dark, because I was sitting next to you for a lot of it, and you might have seen some tears. I was like, be cool, man. Don't let her see the tears rolling down your face. Susan
you saw
Egan,
me crying.
I did, but that was fine. I have video if anybody wants it. The original Belle from Broadway's Beauty and the Beast returned to the stage, again, connecting with fans. Not in the weird way. I have developed this, not weird, crush on Susan Egan, because I was so moved by what, she was putting out there on stage. Michael James Scott, the genie, most famously known for the genie for Aladdin on Broadway, is electrifying. He brings a very, unique energy to everything he does. Daniel Gardner, who played Lumiere. We're obviously going to talk about Jodie Benson and some of the others.
Yes.
But and look, all the performers were spectacular. Again, there was something for everyone, giving us multiple concerts throughout the weekend, from the earliest classics to a goofy movie, whatever it might be. But these mattered, I think, not just from an entertainment perspective, because the performers didn't just sing, they were sharing stories. And I loved how Gardner was sharing all these anecdotes, and Michael James Scott was talking about these performer and fan bonds and these moments that were very sort of intimate and authentic to them, which I love, because more times you see a performer and they sing and that's it, and we don't sort of get anything more. But I love how, having people like Susan Egan there, who I think is taking the same potion as Scott Lang, Ant-Man. Wait, why am I Paul Rudd? Because you would not guess. But her being there, her presence honored this continuing, let's not forget how old-ish Beauty and the Beast is. This lasting impact. Again, it bridges the gap between the show's beginning and its continuing resonance with new generations of fans. And you get to see the original Belle alongside modern day stars. And there's this living timeline of Disney on Broadway. And it shows not just how important they are, but how they transcend time. And the other thing too, I felt was there is definitely this familiar, this camaraderie that you almost sense between all of the performers. There was this genuine warmth and laughter and affection that I think embodies this as not just entertainment, but again, being in the room, it is this shared communal family experience.
Yeah, they talked about that a lot, how they're family. And when they brought out the new Lumiere, it was like, oh, he's our new member of our family, which I thought was so cute. Yeah, I Susan Egan, gosh, her live singing, stop it. I just can't. How does she sound so good still? Like the voice of Meg, she still has that incredible quality to her voice that's like sort of this raspy, just, oh, it's so, so good. She was joking that if Tangled ever comes to Broadway, she wants to petition to be Mother Gothel. And then, which I was like, sure, yeah, I mean, you can sing anything. But then the next day, she opens the villains panel by singing Mother Knows Best. And I was like, okay, everyone in this room would sign that petition right now. Incredible.
That's when I was both crying and crushing all at the same time.
Do you think that maybe since Hercules is going to be part of the Destiny, that there is in any way a chance that she might be on our media? If she is, Lou, I'm just saying, prepare yourself now. Prepare yourself now, because that will be. Do you think? I mean, there's a chance. There's always a chance.
There is it's not just the remarkable talent and that voice, but again, the storytelling. And there's she and all of them have sung these songs hundreds, if not thousands of times, but there is a sincerity in the performance because she knew who she was singing to that I think just came out. And that'll actually let me transition, because 21 on my list was Susan Egan and Jodie Benson.
Jodie Benson. Oh my gosh.
Again, I look, I have no problem sharing this with you. Like, there were moments I was like, Mongello, you got to keep it together, man, because you are getting way too emotional over Disney songs for one reason or another, because it reminded me, I'm going to do it right now. Because it reminded me of my childhood, or it reminded me of my kids when they were younger, or a moment that just sort of like clicked because I heard a lyric from a song. And this D23 fan ambassador is so perfect for her because, and God bless her and D23, because we've seen this sort of almost coming down the pike, because she brings this new personal connection to fans through meet and greets and panels and special appearances, which is really a first for the D23 experience. And she made her presence felt, right? She gave those behind the scenes, backstage, joyful interactions, the stories of working with, Alan Menken, and there is this warmth and genuine enthusiasm that she still has. Again, and understand the point of the story is not where we were, but we did have an opportunity in the room with other invited media guests to have Jodie come in, and she, she gave shared some words, and we had an opportunity to ask a question, and I said it then because it's true. I said she has this remarkable gift of, whether it is the first person in line or the last, whether it is the first or 10,000th person, you are the only person in the room when you speak to her, and she gives you the time and the attention and the respect and like genuine interest in what you are talking about that not everybody does. And I think she is not just an ambassador and the voice of Ariel and Disney storytelling, but her being there really does help make this. She was such a big part of this glue that I talk about making this feel not just very celebratory, but very intimate.
Yeah, she was very vulnerable on stage when she talked about this sort of new role, because it's now an official role she has within D23 of being the host and sort of the throughway throughout all of these events. And what a perfect choice for them. But also you could tell how genuinely excited she was for this new role that she gets to have. And she was emotional. She was emotional about what it means to her, about, what this one role that she got in her youth and how it has changed the entire course of her life, and the way that the synergy that she has with who she is as a person with the Disney company. And it was a beautiful thing. And that's what I think I got everybody in their feelings, because she was she was being so vulnerable and open with what all of this meant to her. She wasn't trying to be cool or try to be like, oh yeah, of course, this is just, whatever. I just have this new role. I'm your host. She was just being very honest about how much it meant to her. And so she just let us all kind of share that moment with her.
And I think, and part of the reason why I put the two of them together, I think the two of them speak to each of us, whether we know them from the very first time we saw their films in theaters or on our, Black Diamond VHS tapes, Be Kind Rewind. But they also speak to a new generation of fans that have grown up watching them on Disney Plus and falling in love with their stories and falling in love with their voices and what they represent both as characters and as actresses to so many people, and getting us to sort of peek behind the curtain with them and hear their very intimate stories. Like when Jodie sang the Disneyland song.
That's when I was crying. I was like,
she sang a song,
was so beautiful. It was so
tell the story
beautiful.
about the Disneyland song. Yeah.
Oh, it was just so beautiful. I guess this was part of a show that was canceled early. I think, was the show called Smile? I think it was called Smile. And it was canceled early, and she was devastated by the fact that this show wasn't going to get this long run that they were hoping. And this was the song that she sang in this show about Disneyland, and she performed it for us live with piano player. It was a beautiful song. It was incredibly moving. But what was so amazing about it was the story she shared about how this was the low point in her career, where she thought, great, this show that I've put my heart and soul into is canceled. And what am I going to do now? I have no job. I have no prospects. And it was that show and that performance that got her on the radar, that got her the audition to audition for Ariel, that ended up giving her the job that changed the whole course of her life. And it's such a great story, because it's so often how life works, that when a door closes and we're at a low moment, it's actually exactly the way things were supposed to happen, and exactly puts us where we need to be and where we were meant to be. And it was beautifully done. I love that she told us the reason why that song meant so much to her. And then she sang it. And so we got to have this moment with her. It was incredible.
Yeah. And again, Smile was a Marvel Hamlish did the music. And again, the connecting of the dots, Howard Ashman did the lyrics. And she said, when Howard said, oh, why don't you come and try out for this role? She thought he was just being kind to her, like, I'll never get this. And obviously the rest was history. And obviously there's the Howard connection with Don Hahn and the incredible documentary that he did on Disney Plus, which you haven't seen. You absolutely should see. But yeah, I just loved every part of the performances and the people, and my heart grew 3 sizes at Destination D this year.
And let's just take a moment to say Jodie Benson herself is 64.
I don't believe it.
She's had this 40-year career with Disney, with, doing what she loves, but also she's embarking on a whole new career here. This is a whole new role for her. She's, entering into this completely new role and era at 64 years old. Like it's never too late for you to take on a new challenge and to try something new. I'm sure she was nervous. I'm sure she was scared, but how amazing it is that we get to have her in this role for us. And she's going to be able to be part of, for years now, these events that we get to enjoy.
And she talked about how she had stepped off a plane at midnight the night before, and you would never guess, the two of them, both her and Susan Egan, just the energy that they brought. Again, not in a creepy way, but I fell in love with them all over again. And I actually interviewed Jodie Benson back on show number 693, probably 2-3 3 years ago. And I mention that only because I want you, if you've never heard an interview with her, because it came through the same way. And I think that was the first time, my first conversation with her like that. I was like, wow, like I really like don't just like admire and respect this person for the work she has done on film and on stage, but just who she is as a person as well. I will admit to you, I came home last night and I'm like trying to put thoughts together, and I opened up Instagram, and again, this is not about me. It's about me just being like a total nerd. When I saw that like Jodie Benson and Susan Egan liked my post, I was like, good night, everybody. That's it. I screenshotted it like I was a 13-year-old girl, and I was like,
that's amazing. Like, yes.
It's so stupid, the little things that make us happy, but I'm like, Susan Egan liked my post.
I know.
Yeah, but it shows
cool.
the love and respect that we have for them. So, all right, yeah. we can just fawn over the two of them and all of the performers who were incredible. We have two left, and the two that I want to get to is the first. Number 22 is what I alluded to at the very beginning, and I saw your face like, what are you talking about, Mongello? I think there was a non-announcement, a big non-announcement, hiding in plain sight. We said that this Destination D is not about announcements, and it wasn't. And I think we got some unexpected gifts, and I also think that we got something more than people realize. Or I'm incredibly wrong, and hopefully, if I am, you'll forget about this as time goes on. Becky Cline did these interstitial presentations called Disney Around the Globe. And there were 3 that she sprinkled throughout the weekend. And each one spotlighted a specific region around the world, including India, China, and Japan, sort of showcasing Disney's cultural inspirations and the connections and I think the influence across. I sort of felt this was really less about like the parks and things, really about like global storytelling. And rather than doing these deep dives, I love that they were these very concise, maybe 10 minutes each, almost like a visual showcase through some of the historical references and archival imagery and things like that. So again, for Japan, which I wish could have been a 2-day session, it's centered on, Disney connection to Japan and Japan's connection to Disney, as well as same thing for China. And then India, I was like, oh, this is interesting, why it was brought in. But I love from a fan perspective, I love that I felt that even though they were short, these panels mattered because it reminds us as fans that Disney stories don't exist in isolation. They are enriched and inspired and informed by cultures around the world, from, as we talked about earlier, from villains like architecture to art styles and music and fashion and folklore that is brought into the stories. And I think the archive sort of uses as like a cultural bridge, right? History is preserved not just for nostalgia, but to help us sort of understand Disney's place in the wider cultural conversation. And I think by doing this, we maybe don't get to travel to these places. By highlighting some of those influences, we have a respect and recognition of the different communities that shape stories and honors their contributions. And I also think by doing this, it gives a sense of belonging to a worldwide fandom in terms of keeping, like, I think sometimes we, here domestically in the States, we sort of forget that Disney magic is shared and celebrated and also interpreted differently across continents. We talked about when Abu Dhabi was announced, the sort of the cultural implications of that. And I think that's what this has. I think by reminding us as fans of the cultural ties, it sort of indirectly points to future expansions and parks and films and collaborations. And so, like, I understood China and Japan in World Showcase and where Disney currently has theme parks. But I want to talk specifically about India because I was like, this is an interesting choice. It's like, like I always felt, well, there's no presence in World Showcase, but I think it would make the perfect addition. We've had this conversation over years and decades, but that's not what this was about, like at all. They talked about animation and the Jungle Book, right? And modern Disney animation. I had never heard of Mira, Royal Detective, and this mystery adventure that's set in Jaipur, this fantasy world that was inspired by India. I think they talked about like the Cheetah Girls and Million Dollar Arm and Jungle Book and the remake of Jungle Book and some of the inspiration there. But I'm not so sure that's it. I think, and maybe I'm reading between the lines, the fact that India was spotlighted, unlike Japan or China, India has no presence. And I don't know, I can't think of any other time where Disney sort of highlights countries at a major fan event without reason. I think they use moments like this to, as I said earlier, build awareness of some of the cultural connections, maybe plant the seed of interest, and maybe, just possibly, test the waters with the fan community. And I think India makes perfect sense for Disney. I think it's a culturally rich in terms of mythology and architecture, music and art. Let's not even start talking. I love Indian food too. So I think there's great opportunities for storytelling and placemaking. I also think India is one of the fastest growing entertainment markets in the world. Disney also has already a massive footprint there through TV like Disney Star and Hotstar and film and consumer products. I think it's the perfect world showcase fit. Epcot has room and I think desire for new pavilions. It's been rumored as Blue Sky for years, and there was actually concept art for an India pavilion with this Taj Mahal style facade going back to the 80s. And I think on the flip side, look, I think as Disney looks beyond existing park regions, Abu Dhabi, I'm looking at you, India sort of represents one of those last major untapped markets for a potential international resort. So I may be wrong, I probably am, but I wonder if India being featured at Destination D23 was not just a random choice, but more importantly, a deliberate breadcrumb.
That's really exciting. You're right. The other three that they mentioned were China, France, and Japan.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention France, yeah.
Yeah, and they all have already existing parks, or we have not only parks, but they already have things within Epcot as well with the World Showcase, whereas India doesn't. And maybe there's a reason why the head of Disney Archives was doing a deep dive into the connections of Disney and India. Interesting.
Because I think this is sort of how Disney works, right? They start with storytelling, they start with the culture, they start with this archival celebration, right? They build a little bit of fan curiosity and then maybe connect that narrative thread to a physical place or experience. So, look, I think, and I could be way off, and I know nothing other than what I saw this weekend, but I think that the India spotlight, because it was not just part of something else. It had its own slot on the schedule. This India spotlight at Destination D23 might be more than just a cultural showcase. It could be Disney quietly signaling the next frontier.
That would be really cool. I support it. I think that'd be awesome, especially because so much of those panels that Becky did felt like a person going, hey, here's my hyperfixation of my latest research project. Here's the things that I just discovered that I am really fascinated by, and I'm going to share it with you. Whereas, everything kind of had a reason, but, why India as opposed to, Disney parks, Disney around the globe, India was the name of that piece. And Disney,
every other place there's a touch point, right? They have a physical touch point there.
There isn't anything there. So yeah, even if it is just, I say just, but obviously a new theme park would be a huge thing. Slightly smaller would be maybe a presence within World Showcase, which would be amazing and would be, I think, incredibly well received.
I'll even be happy starting off with a restaurant. Like, bring in some tikka masala, and I am good to go. So,
yes.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah. Let's.
I'm
time
very
will tell.
curious. Yeah, for you sitting around this table with us. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. And look, if you think I'm a crazy person, this is probably not the only evidence that you have, or you would agree that this might be what is coming next. Last and certainly not least, and I know we've been going long, sorry, but there was so much to cover from 3 days. Number 23 is that Destination D23 unequivocally proves Disney's commitment to the fan experience. This sold out 4,000 person 3-day event demonstrated their dedication to providing exclusive content, which again I think is a gift, announcements and experiences to the most passionate fans, which really sets the stage for an even bigger set of reveals at D23 2026 in Anaheim. I think Destination D23 is this microcosm of Disney. It balances nostalgia and legacy. We didn't even talk about the Exitensio tributes, the 70th, the archival deep dives, with future-facing projects like Villains Land, Paris, Disney Destiny. It wasn't just about celebrating the past or the future. It's about that continuum of Disney storytelling. But Serena, I honestly think it was more than about announcements. It was about belonging. It's the shared fan experience, the communal joy of being together in that room. It's not a news event. It's a community event. And that closing presentation and that closing concert was the perfect finale. It was this joyful exclamation point and a reminder, like, it's not about stories and history and the things that separate us, but the things that unite us, and it's music and shared experiences that bring us all together. We talk about the energy, like that finale was electric. It was high energy, and it was like goosebumps and tears and clapping, and everybody, each of the 4,000 people in that room were part of the show. And it underscores what D23 is all about, which is connection. And I met a lot of, and thank you to so many people I had a chance to talk to, because for some, it was the first time at a D23 event. And for others, it's sort of become tradition. And in that finale, man, none of it mattered. Everybody was united like by the same songs and the same stories and the same love of Disney. And it was at that moment, I'm like, I don't know 99% of you, but this feels like a family reunion, and it was sort of tied through that music. And I think it was the sort of the perfect present moment of community.
I totally agree. And I would really encourage anyone to consider attending. I know that they do sell out quick. You have to be kind of, paying attention, and you have travel plans and stuff, but there's something really magical about being in the room where it happens. It's worth trying at least one time, whether it's whether it's the one in Anaheim or the smaller events that they're doing as they take D23 around the world and to go on tour with these events. Just think about attending one in person so that you get that touch point with your local community of fans that love the things you love. It's powerful.
It's Disney isn't just about what you see on a screen or in a park. It's about how it makes us feel. And those feelings become even more magnified and stronger when we share them together in shared spaces like this. And again, whether it's Destination D, an on-the-road event, or D23, the ultimate fan experience next year in Anaheim, these events are all built on inclusion and welcome and belonging and heart and soul. Like, I always talk about how, like, for me, the podcast is the heart of what I do, but community is the soul. And Destination D23 proves that again. Like, the announcements might make the headlines, but it's the communities that make the memories. And look, there was so much more that we didn't get to talk about, from panels and presentations and photo ops. And one last thing I want to say, and it's to Michael Vargo and the entire team. I felt this event, Serena, was flawlessly executed from an organizer and guest perspective. The the lines, the shopping, the food. I heard no complaints, not just from me, but from the people around me. Well, and look, Disney fans, this may come as a shock to you. There are some people who are just sort of perennially grumpy and they'll just complain. Like, there was none of that. There was none of that there. And I cannot imagine what it takes and how many moving pieces and puzzle parts there are and things going on behind the scenes that we don't see. But from a guest perspective, from my personal perspective, you are welcome to disagree. I think this was one of the most flawlessly executed events I had zero complaints about it. And that I know it's a monumental undertaking. So to everybody, like, on stage, backstage, behind the scenes, in Anaheim, in Orlando, and everywhere else around the world, like, kudos to you for what you did to make this come together like that.
I totally agree. It was a fantastic event, and just the organization. I so appreciated how organized it was, how clearly everything was marked, how easy it was to find your way around, how everything was so accommodating. It was wonderful to experience something like that, and it didn't feel. I know it's 4,000 people because they told us it was 4,000 people, but it didn't feel like it was, too many people in the space that they were. There was a lot of thought and a lot of planning that clearly went into this event. And, a lot of fan events these days don't go off flawlessly. So I appreciate what obviously must have gone into it to make it such a good one. It's just one that I could really feel wholeheartedly recommend to people to attend. Like, you're going to have a good experience. It's not going to be something that you're just going to end up frustrated and feel like, oh, that was just a bunch of money wasted. Like, it's genuinely just a really, really good time.
And whether you are an introvert or an extrovert, whether you have attended something before, whether you're part of a community, I just felt like this is, I had a conversation with somebody and I said this, sort of tongue in cheek, one of the things about Disney is it is a place that is welcoming and inviting and accepting of everyone. A lot of us, maybe we're not the most popular kids in school. Speaking, I may be talking about myself. Disney's always been that place where you always felt welcome. And that's what these events do. And whether you come alone, whether you come with family, like you come with friends, that you are, I used to say, I said, God help the outcast. This is the place where you know that you can come and be welcome. Because, look, communities sort of become a marketing buzzword in some spaces, but communities where the stories that we love become the stories that we live. And that's what this coming together is really about. And, I think I thought about this as I was walking out yesterday. I said, the greatest attraction Disney's ever built is community. And it's a D23 is a huge, huge part of it. Last question for you, Serena. If you were to close your eyes right now and think back on one memory, one moment, one takeaway from Destination D23, what is it?
Probably it's Jodie Benson singing that song about that she got to sing to all of us, and just the story behind it. That's probably that's what pops in my head at the beginning. It's also just the time that I get to spend with people, on a personal note, what you and I do is we run our own businesses singularly with just us. It's just us in an office. A lot of times just behind a computer. It's a time where we get to come and interact with people and actually see people. We're not just talking to the void here. We actually get to see faces, have people come up to get to have conversations with other fans, get to have conversations with other people who do what we do and love what we love. It's so personally fulfilling. It really fills up your cup in the best way. And it gives you all of this stuff that no social media posts can convey. I can't share this on Instagram, what it gives me. This is something that it gives me that's very personal and, makes me feel like I want to just keep going. I want to just keep continuing to do what I do. I want to keep going back to these parks that I love. I want to keep watching these movies that I love. That's such a great feeling to feel like your creativity and your spark reignited. Not a lot of things do that in life. Most things drain us. This is one of the few things that fills us back up.
Yeah, we said at the very beginning, and it was the word we kept using all weekend, was the energy, right? It was the energy in the room. It was the energy on from the performers and the panelists and the presenters, and it was the energy that we left with, right? You just wanted to like take it all in. I get it. You wanted to go home and like watch a Disney movie. You wanted to like
Yeah.
go to a park and things like that, and that's something special when an event is able to do that, especially at scale. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing and spending so much time during the event with me. Again, these things are definitely best enjoyed when you can share them with someone else. Do me a favor, tell people where they can find you.
Living by Disney on all platforms. And I have a podcast as well, where we talk about Disney stuff as well as like tips and strategies for visiting the parks, mostly Disney World and Disney Cruise Line. Living by Disney on everywhere you go.
I will link to it on the show notes over at WDW Radio.com. And I look forward to, we've gotten to do some pretty amazing things together. I know there's some
We really have
stuff coming up that we get to do. And I appreciate you sharing that with me.
Thanks for having me anytime.
Still the Susan Egan, Jody Benson moments, and even like when all the presenters got on stage and the confetti's flying and they're singing like eye to eye, like
it's great. It was a really good event. It was a really, really good event. Now I didn't go to Destination D23 last time, with the time before, so I didn't do the most recent one at the Contemporary. But I love this. I hope they keep going with this. And it's like this was like the way Expo was in like, I don't know, like 2015, 2016, whatever that was. So it feels like this one's just going to keep growing, and fan events going to keep growing.
I can't wait to see what D23, the Ultimate Fan Experience, has in store next August.
It's going to be awesome.